Minneapolis is intending to try a basic income program.
Oh, sure.
I know. Isn't this fun?
For 200 families. They think this will alleviate poverty by paying low-income households $500 a month for 2 years, no strings attached.
Right.
The city has set aside $3 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds. That's
our money.
It's your money.
Yeah.
Households must earn less than 50% of area median income to be eligible. Everybody assemble their questions as we read through this, as I have a number. The program echoes a similar experiment that St. Paul launched in 2020 and dozens of other cities nationwide whose leaders have made testing grounds to inform federal welfare policies. Minneapolis wanted to try guaranteed basic income because federal COVID money offered an opportunity for something radically different to address the city's intractable racial disparities, said Eric Hansen, the city's director of economic policy and development. We have some of the largest gaps in wealth building in the country. Stop right there, because you got really screwed up zoning laws. We have some of the highest gaps in the home ownership by race. That's because your zoning laws that prevent the building of single-family homes. In high school, graduation rates is going to be determined based on skin color in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We need to start thinking of different ways to try and address this disparity. Well, one would be for mom and dad to tell the kid to do his homework or her homework. Traditionally, a welfare program imposes a number of work and education conditions. Food stamps require able-bodied adults without dependents to work at least 20 hours a week or participate in a job training program. Where there's a public benefit, there's always the expectation on the individual that they are owing something to that system.
Yeah.
And one thing about guaranteed basic income is giving agency to the recipient, said Mark Brinda, manager of the Minneapolis Employment and Training. That's one of the most astonishing paragraphs you will read in America in years.
I had to read it 3 times. I can't believe what I'm
it's saying
seeing.
is it's been unfair to have expectations of people.
20 hours a week?
It's
what?
been unfair to have conditions met. This gives agency to the recipient, which is a fancy way of saying we don't give a bleep what they do with the money. We're giving it to them.
I could have
No
hit this
questions
button
asked.
a million times, but I'm just going to do it once for the entire piece.
We don't know that.
Guaranteed basic income should be much more straightforward than traditional benefit programs, which can be problematic for those in language barriers. Well, then speak English and learn how. Bo Tao Urabe, executive director of the Coalition of Asian American Leaders, said the burden of translating often falls to immigrant and refugee children. She said families face confusion around what counts as work training activity and having to apply for jobs that don't fit their skills in order to meet basic criteria for receiving food assistance. Again, that's saying that in our enlightened view of progressivism, we should remove any and all barriers to anyone receiving free money. It makes it extremely difficult for people who are in poverty to put additional conditions on the financial assistance that they get, Tao Urabe said. Research around the effectiveness of these guaranteed basic incomes is limited because multi-year nationwide pilots are still in their infancy. So in other words, there is no research on how this works.
There's no data whatsoever, but we're just going to plow ahead with it anyway.
Some preliminary findings emerged from the Stockton, California last spring. In 2019, Stockton pioneered the nation's first mayor-led initiative to give 125 people $500 a month for 2 years. The city found that the guaranteed income gave recipients opportunities to take more risks to achieve higher aspirations, such as quitting a low-wage job in pursuit of an internship, leading to better employment. I'd like to believe that.
Yeah, the problem there is they don't give you any proof.
There's no evidence of this.
Yeah.
It also found an increase in full-time work among participants, despite the program having no work requirements. So you're telling me that magically you were giving people in Stockton, California $500 a month, and magically that inspired them to work more.
All I need is proof. Show me the numbers.
The largest spending category each month was food, followed by sales, merchandise, which were likely also food purchases at wholesale clubs and larger stores like Walmart and Target, the Stockton report said. Other leading categories each month were utilities and auto care or transportation. Less than 1% of tracked purchases were for tobacco and alcohol. A study of Alaska's permanent fund, which pays out $2,000 a year to each resident of the state, regardless of age. I think that's because they're oil rich, right? They decided long ago to divvy that up among the residents of Alaska.
Yep.
Found that it had no effect on full-time employment, but did increase part-time employment. Overall, the estimated macro effects of an unconditional cash transfer on the labor market are inconsistent with large aggregate reductions in employment, the researchers concluded.
Explain what that means.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't get that either. I'm not smart enough to understand
The
that
Federal
paragraph.
Reserve Bank in Minneapolis is partnering with the city of Minneapolis to evaluate the program. Ryan Nunn, the Fed's Assistant Vice President for Applied Research Community Development, said the Center for Indian Country Development said his team plans to survey participants about their subjective experiences, but also study whether the extra cash enabled participants to achieve higher employment and social mobility. We're trying to track outcomes from housing to labor to mental and physical health and well-being, Nunn said. We think we have a rigorous statistical design for learning what the effects are, and we're excited to find out more. Okay, what did we say? It was 200 families?
Yep.
Well, how
Wait, don't ruin my first question.
Okay.
I wrote questions down. Don't ruin it.
Minneapolis officials are still sifting through applications. While he could not say how many households applied, Brenda confirmed demand exceeded availability. Funding for the Minneapolis program will run out in 2 years, but if the results from the pilot are positive, staff may lobby for additional resources from a blend of the city's general fund and the federal and philanthropic sources. Well, you know it's not going to end. No government program ever begun ends. If you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for his lifetime.
Yeah, he'll end up buying a boat and a depth finder and trailer, and then he's going to have to upgrade, and then he's going to have to get a four-stroke motor, and then he's going to have to get a bigger boat, and oh my God, it just goes on and on and on. Ooh. Don't teach anybody how to fish.
You have a question?
The latest census report of 2020, Joe, shows that 429,954 people currently reside in the great city of Minneapolis. Excuse me, the once great city of Minneapolis. Who's going to decide the 200 families that get to receive this bonus? And what difference is this money going to make to begin with?
Well, they tell you that it will make a difference.
Sure.
What we're suggesting is show me the proof that it makes a difference.
What is the median income in Minneapolis?
Look it up.
Thank you. That was one of mine also.
Because you must
Probably
earn
about
less than
$32,000.
you must earn less than 50% of that.
Median income.
I think it's around 35, 32, 35. So you got to earn less than 16
Income
grand.
per capita.
If you let me just tell you something. If you earn less than 16 grand, $500 a month is not going to help.
No.
Income per capita in the city of Minneapolis is $33,490.
Is that the median?
Median
means half above, half below.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
Oh,
That's what it's saying. Median is per capita 33,490.
yeah. Who's the great emperor who's going to choose who gets to receive?
Well, I think
chosen.
that was in the story, right? Wasn't it?
No, not
isn't there a
saying-
committee?
no.
No, I thought there was a committee going.
No.
Probably another task force.
Task force.
So, and here's the other part I wanted to bring up because I'm sure Johnny was going to bring this up in his news, but Governor Walz proposed his budget for this morning, John, right? Didn't he propose that this morning?
Yeah.
$2.7 billion, Joe, for infrastructure that we're going to propose here in the state of Minnesota. A big portion of which we're going to focus on jobs. Governor, I don't know how to point this out to you, but there are 1 million jobs available right now that people don't want.
Jobs. Nothing but jobs. I have two questions. I already forgot my second question. Should have wrote it down. First question, does this mean free weed? Woohoo!
I'll bet you'd have more cash to buy it.
Yeah, my second question, I do remember it. What would you propose in lieu of this?
Nothing. There's already a wide variety of entitlement programs. It seems to me this is the addition of an entitlement program that doesn't ask anything of you.
And will fester out of control.
Because the progressives find it unreasonable to ask anything of you. They're bent on making all sorts of people, including white people, less than.
And dependent upon the government.
Dependent on them.
Yes.
What about instead of $500 in your pocket, $500 towards schooling? at say a blue collar or community college,
Dunwoody.
or tech thing, would that make a difference? I know my kid who's 21 is making more than I was making when I was in my 30s, and it's all thanks to St. Paul College, a tech school.
This is a mass of people that this thinking has created.
With their handout.
Yeah, this is just.
I don't want to go achieve. I don't want to go work. I don't want to go earn.
This is wrong.
Yep. We are deep.
And you're going to run out of other people's money. That's where this heads. You're going to run out of other people's money.
That was my first question, and they sort of answered it by saying they could find, more money afterwards. Well, after 2 years, this money's gone. Right. I don't want it. I don't want more money just to come out of the general fund.
Well, then it comes out of the general fund, and they have philanthropy.
Yeah.
Is it de-incentivize or disincentivize? Why are we disincentivizing people to work? I don't get that line of thinking.
The American Rescue Plan, so that's the fund. Mm-hmm. And that fund also obviously comes right from us, right?
Yeah.
How much is in that fund right now? I would love to know the figure. What are they sitting on?
Oh, the Feds just collected record tax amounts for the last quarter.
It'd be fun to have that money, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And by the way,
your own money, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
the governor.
It'd be nice to have my own money.
The governor wants to do $2.7 billion with didn't we already have a $7 billion surplus?
Yes. You don't hear much talk of that.
You don't, Joe.
Well, okay. You've admitted the progressives keep getting bolder and bolder and bolder, and to my way of thinking, this is merely an admission that we think it's unreasonable for anyone receiving this money to do anything for it. We don't want any answers.
We're the government. We're here to help you.
We're going to help you, and we don't care what you do with this money. We pretend that we have a means to track it, but we really don't. And it's just inconvenient for you if you would have to work. So we're not going to.
I'm looking at the white paper from the Stockton study.
Yep.
They did track every cent, basically, and the way they did that was with cards. They gave them prepaid cards. Mm-hmm. So you get a card, the $500 goes on there. Where the money's spent.
So
it's kind of interesting. So everything's broken down by category, the aggregate spending to the money these people received. It's kind of interesting. It's very complicated, obviously. It's a 25-page white letter. So,
but can you give us, say, the top 5 places that the money was spent? Please tell me it was a grocery store.
Food is the top one by far. Almost 40%, 30 to 40% was spent on food.
Joe, this might go against what you've been saying, but I don't have a problem with that.
That's because you're a big, fat, bleeding heart.
I just
thank God it's you now.
If they're going to spend it on food, I mean, God, how am I supposed to have a problem with that? I thought this was going to go to video rentals.
There are already food programs.
The weed shop and, new rims for my
But there are already programs for food.
That you have to work for, you mean, food stamps?
But you have to do something.
Right.
Well, that's okay. We can't have you do something.
All right, Such.
Let's just give you the money.
The categories were food, sales and merchandise, which means clothing, etc., utilities, auto care, services, I don't know what services means, transportation, insurance, medical, self-care, education, and donation. There's actually some donations as part of it.
All right, Kenny, let's take your concern out to what might be its logical conclusion.
Okay.
Because you were the same one who said if you're making 50% below the median income,
it's not going to help.
$500 isn't going to help. So
I said that.
Why isn't this program saying let's give everybody $45,000 a year? Well, what's your end game here? You're not going to have a standard of living with $500 a month.
Right.
And then you're asking me to believe that giving you the $500 will compel you or inspire you to work. Well, you're already not working. Why, if I give you $500, would you decide then, geez, maybe I better work now?
See, in my mind, I'm picturing a single mom working 3 part-time jobs with a couple of kids who's not making ends meet, who's living in the world's worst apartment, heating the house with the oven, I'm painting a pretty grim picture in my mind, and I'm thinking, $500, that's a lot of frozen pizzas. That'll help.
To somewhat back Kenny's thing there, the Stockton White Paper does have actual people who are receiving the money. And the people that they talk to, granted, this could be very well cherry-picked, but they all have jobs, had jobs before all of this started. They just weren't jobs that were paying them the median income.